Welcome back to episode 8 of Cain's Jawbone. Today we're going to discuss 4 more pages of the book that I have for you with some of the clues. You can watch all the previous episodes, by the way, on my channel. I have a playlist for this. And if you feel like I don't really want to watch all of the previous videos, episode 7, so the one before this, it's kind of like a summary of all the stuff that I've had before. So you can check that one out. So when I'm filming this is the early days of 2023, and I do hope to kind of slightly finish the book this year. So fingers crossed for that one. We're going to discuss the 4 pages, some of the clues. So yeah, let's start on the first page. So the first page is page 98, which I have here. You can see everything right here. On page 98, the names that are mentioned are Douglas and May, and I think that POV is female, and I think that for a very specific reason. Because of the first sentence, he stood and looked down at me, but I was not to be hurried. So it is someone, a taller person is opposite to them, which generally thought like, okay, this person is definitely shorter. And because we have one female POV, I kind of had to like remind me of that, because women are often shorter than men. So I thought like maybe that's where this comes from. Obviously it can also just be another person who is shorter than whoever they're exchanging money with. So definitely give an extra credit to the female POV, but with a big question mark. Then we have the other clue for this one, which is referencing the poem Clara de Vera Vera by Tennyson. And Tennyson is very interesting because we've seen his work mentioned or referenced before, and it is because of this sentence. And then he went, simple faith or Norman bluff. So the last sentence is a reference to the poem, and that part kind of means that it's better to be a decent person than a rich person, and we've established that there's definitely at least one storyline or one part of the story where we have very affluent people talking about their lifestyle, who have kind of looser morals. So yeah, that might be in reference to each other, whether it's the same story or part of, or the same POV between both of those things, or that are just interlinking characters but with a slightly different point of view. Who knows? Then we have the next sentence. So simple faith or Norman bluff, but that Douglas was perhaps less tender and more true. So that sense could be a reference to Norman Douglas, who's like an author, writer, and overall really terrible person. Well, like maybe I need to write it down because this book has a lot of references to authors. And then we have the last clue, which is the last sentence. Sunset was already reddish purple over the quarry hills. So yeah, I just thought like probably references to quarry hills. There's one specifically in Leeds in the UK, so I feel like I wrote that down as a possible location that this is taking place, or that someone is from, or that we maybe see this location come by in another part. That's it for page 98, and then we going off to the second one, which is page 39. Which I have right here for you. You can see that there's a lot underlined. I don't have a lot of clues for this one, because there were just so many things in there that I feel like I didn't really know what it was referencing to, and I had like no good conclusions kind of to the clues, or like kind of ways to like, okay, I think this could be it or this. It was like a little bit too vague still. Remember how I mentioned multiple times like, hey, I think that there are more Henrys involved. Like, I'm 100% sure there are. And here's the thing, and I don't know if I've ever mentioned it in a previous video, and just ended up cutting it out, like, I don't really know. But I've been having this idea that maybe there is a dog POV, and I think I put that in the video that there's a POV for a dog. And I think one of them might be Henry. And I feel like page 39 gives us like very clear evidence of this. Because this is what she mentions. Showed us some delicate undercoats, all raw liver color, very lovely, improved it. But she had, too, a passion for getting new things, and I was sorry for his sake. After all, in all my life with him, I had only had one coat, and that an inherited one. So what I think this is reference to is that, like, the person, the MD doctor, is showing, like, maybe furs to the dog owner, and the dog is like, I don't understand why you won't have multiple ones. I have one and it works really well, and that's it. Because undercoats are usually when we talk about like the hairs of dogs, and maybe it also goes for fur. I'm not like really familiar with that. I feel like this kind of page solidifies that one of them is a dog, like one POV, which honestly is very funny. And I really enjoyed that take. And I reckon that like maybe one of them is Henry, because I think like one of the dogs' names is Henry. So that's that one. And then the final clue that we talk about is the phrenologist mentioned, which is the sentence. But there was a George too, because he said so. He called him a phrenologist. Though it didn't seem to me he gave much away. Now, a phrenologist is another name for a phrenologist. So phrenologist is just like a person who does like this, or looks at like it's a type of a theory surrounding the brain. And then it can reference to Kombe, who is, I think, a person involved into that theory or that movement. So that's page 39. A few very definitive clues. The ones that I have do give her a lot of information, and then there's a lot of them that I don't really know whether they're clues or what they're referencing to. So we're gonna go on to the third page, which is page 53. So page 53, which I can show you here. So you can see some of the underlining and clues. Okay, so one of the names mentioned is Sir Paul Trinder. This is important because on page 80, Sir Paul is poisoned. So I'm hoping and praying that it's the same one, and that we don't have multiple Sir Pauls. So a little bit more down to the page, we have the other clue, or at least talk, is Furo Loquindi. For anyone who speaks Latin, I probably botched that. I apologize. But yeah, so it's a Latin sentence, and it's part of the sentence as that of Sir Paul Trinder, whose Furo Loquindi had caused him for 20 years to tear loudly to every ebbing cause in town. So Furo Loquindi is basically means melting fury. I don't know, when I like looked that up, it was just, there were so many possibilities of what it could be that I feel like I need to know a little bit more about what's going on to know what the actual clue and reference is, if that even is the case. Or that maybe someone else were mentioning melting fury. I don't know. And then the last clue is talked about a chartered lecturer. He was, and at this point we are still referencing Sir Paul. He was also, if I mistook not, some sort of chartered lecturer at obscure seats. One might almost call them stools of learning. So basically saying it's like he was a professor at a school, college that no one respected. That was a really bad one. And then not even call them seats but stools, which again is kind of like showing like it's not even like, could you call yourself a professor if you're there, because it's basically that man has no career, whoever Sir Paul is. We have a few other ones that's talking about People's University, so maybe that's also related to it. I don't know, but we're keeping it all in mind. And then we go to the last page. It's page 32. Which I have right here. Alright, so we see here, page 32, some of the underlinings and everything. If there's one page who has a lot of names, which we have here, wrote down, Henry, Clement, Chesterton, and Wodehouse. I will say this, Henry, we all know him. Chesterton, which is also referenced somewhere in other pages, within a clue. So not as a name itself, but within a clue, so maybe it's something to do with the other. Wodehouse is also probably a reference to a novel or a place like that was kind of ambiguous. And then Clement, which I hadn't seen before, but we have talked about certain French aspect and France itself that has come by a little bit. So maybe we see more of this, but because it's also a relatively common name, I couldn't really quickly or with any certainty say if that was referencing to a character in a book or to living person. Then we have a location, which is, or I think it's a location, in this case called Gainsborough, which also very easily could be a person, like a last name, because some people are mentioned only by their last name, or it could reference Sir Thomas, do I say that right? Thomas Gainsborough, who was like a painter, and we've also been referencing to multiple painters, so maybe that's something to do with it. The next clue we get is from this sentence. Let me look it up. Henceforth I ask not good fortune, I myself am good fortune. Which is from the poem Song of the Open Road by Walt Whitman. And this poem is kind of talking about specifically this part, about how everyone has a chance of a good fortune, that it's all out there for everyone. It's like very, I think, manifestation of like the olden days. We don't really know what it means for, but it could be related to the one where we talk about like the clothing and like the more richer people that we've also had with the other page at like 98, page 98. At the beginning of the video, because obviously maybe because I think one character, I think one of the main characters, she got very rich because she married up. I think that maybe it's related to that part a little bit or referencing those people. The last clue that we have is from the sentence, Had Chesterton said something about its being hemp at both ends. My job might prove him right. So now I know again what the Chesterton's referring to, which is probably the writer J.K. Chesterton, because the sentence from it's being hemp at both ends comes from his book, The Flying In, which is a book about... It's talk about a main person of this book has a pub that's flying in, the prohibition comes by, and him and another person kind of travel around and meet, like, what's it like? The two travel around England, encountering revolution, romance, and a cast of memorable characters. So maybe it's got something to do with someone who owns a pub, or someone who travels around and sees a lot of people, like romance, revolution, all of those things. I don't really know, but whoever this person is probably relates to the characters in The Flying In from Chesterton. So yeah, that's kind of the last clue for today. Okay, so I see my battery is almost dying, so I'm gonna keep this short and sweet. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to know all the clues, you can find it in the description box down below, a document with all of them. There are a few more that are in there that I haven't mentioned. So you can find everything there, or just you can see the playlist on my channel. And you can also subscribe, and then you will get an update whenever a new video comes out. And then I see you guys again next time. Up until then, I hope you guys read more, figure it out as well. And again, thank you so much for watching. Bye.